Welcome back, folks. Chris and Sarah, the Zen Meathead podcast. We have a guest with us today, Kaje Thomas. Welcome.
Yes,
you have
again.
Yes, I was going to say you've been here with us before. By the way, it's been a few weeks since I checked, but the porn addiction episode is the number one episode, and this has got to be getting towards number 30 for us. So,
wow.
Well done.
Okay,
right?
I'll take it.
So, Kaje Thomas runs her own life coaching business. Already right out of the gate.
Here.
This is the conversation today.
Welcome to the conversation.
Kaje Thomas of No Bullshit Life Coaching.
Yes.
And Kaje, you identify as queer.
Non-binary.
Correct.
Non-binary.
Both those things are correct.
And this is a very touchy subject right now, something that I find a lot of people don't know how to speak respectfully, don't know what terms to use. So the hope today is by bringing you in and your own experience in coaching people, living your own life, you can kind of help us to shed some light on how do we behave appropriately in the workplace, in the world.
Here's hoping.
How do we be allies? How do we support each other? How do we?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm hoping to talk on
Create
this
a space
as much as possible and share this information with anybody who's interested in having it.
The world. Well, as I so elegantly pointed out right at the beginning by using the incorrect pronoun, let's dive right into that. Your preferred pronouns are they and them.
Correct.
This is a really, really polarizing topic in my experience. In the big tech world that we live in, tends to be one of the more emerging, inclusive spaces that I've ever found in my life. And this subject has become more and more prevalent over the last, 10 years in my experience, which I imagine for you is like, how did this only come to your purview 10 years ago?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that 10 years is actually that's longer than I would have imagined someone would say so. I feel like it's really only come into the limelight for me in the last maybe 3 or 4 years because there hasn't been an avenue for it.
Right. It didn't exist before now.
Not really. Yeah, right. I mean.
So if you're comfortable with it, walk us through what that experience, that journey was like for you, first and foremost, because I think demystifying what this process is the first part of understanding. So,
yeah, that's a loaded question.
Right. So like growing up, did you resonate with femaleness? Did you resonate with maleness? Like I was always a huge tomboy.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term. Like I was out, banging with hammers and ripping around on the big wheel and climbing trees and knocking teeth out and, all kinds of stuff. So, I've always resonated with that, but where does it go from this is something I'm comfortable with to this is something this is what's part of me?
Yeah, that's a good question. First I'll say I think there's a bit of a panic going on now about like if you have a child who happens to be bio-female and they also happen to be on the tomboy scale, like that is no reason to be running down the field of, I have a trans kid or I have a non-binary kid, because the tomboy expression of a biological female is very common, and these social constructs we've made around boy and girl
that are just
things
completely
we created,
made up.
Yeah. So like, it's not really fair to pigeonhole a playful child into any particular spot. My own journey is complicated. I think one of the reasons, I'm giving a talk on this in January, and I hope to be talking more about it. One of the reasons my position and my point of view is a little bit unorthodox is because of my age. So if you talk to someone who was 16 or 15 or in their early 20s about the same subject, you're going to get an entirely different response. I'll address what's the difference. I was also a tomboy, but from a very early age, when I saw a girl, I was attracted to that person physically.
It did something for
There was
you.
more there.
Yeah, and I gotta say, and I probably had a different experience than a lot of kids because I had very, still have, even though I don't really like to think about it, very intensely affectionate parents.
Oh, yeah.
And so they were like that since I was a kid. So now hold on to your hats. But the first French kiss I ever saw was between my parents.
That's weird.
And I don't know how many people can actually say that, but in retrospect, they're quite in love with each other. And so is it weird? It's sweet and lovely, but also super fucking odd because, sorry.
Yeah. A little uncomfortable.
It's not, it wasn't uncomfortable to me that's what I grew up with.
Right.
But I can tell you the number of times I've told this story is, this might be the first time I've told this story.
You heard it here, folks.
So, the thing is that like I got introduced to physical sexual intimacy very early.
Yeah.
So it might sound like, oh my God, you were interested in someone sexually at 5. Mm-hmm. But for someone who was exposed from birth, is it like I saw two people experiencing something that was clearly enjoyable? Mm-hmm. So for me, it was no different than enjoying a good meal or a good glass of cold orange juice or anything else. It's like if somebody did something and they acted like it was yummy, I was like, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
So I distinctly remember my first girlfriend whose last name I shan't say for her protection. But I was crazy about her. Her name was Susan. She lived down the street from me and I just thought she was the cutest thing. And so tomboy, yes, but also like, I wanted to experience something with her very early on. And, she was willing to acquiesce that, which was fine because we were kids and you're still in the experimental phase. But
unformed.
I fear I pushed the boundaries of the experimental phase much longer than I probably was allowed to do with actually many different girls. And so, but that's a whole different line of trauma. So, yeah, that was my first understanding of being different was, I think, when she said that wasn't okay at some point. Like somebody obviously saw us interacting, said it wasn't okay.
Made a judgment
and then
call.
she said it wasn't okay. And then I was like, wait, why? Mm-hmm. And so that was the first time it occurred to me that I might be different, and then that just got solidified as the years went on. So I won't roll you through the whole story, but and then you can only eke out your position as much as society will let you. So when I came out, I came out as a lesbian because that's what was available
at the time.
Yeah, and so I won't roll you through all the incarnations, but where I sit today is just feeling really grateful for the last, 2 generations that are vehemently exercising their right to say there has to be space for people to be whatever they want to be. And so I would not have access to they, them pronouns and never had access to they, them pronouns or even the thought process of that until 2020.
Wow.
I mean, how would I? Like, I don't know. So, thank you to the young trailblazers of America. We all put on pavement. I put on pavement. People put on pavement on the road before, for me. And I hope I put some on for, some of the youth that are on the planet. And then, now they're putting some on for the people who are coming up behind them, but also, for the 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 set who was like, oh shit, I can be non-binary? Is that a thing?
I don't have to choose A or B?
Yeah, that's new. That's recent. So that's, I think, why the push is so heavy is because there's not just the younger generation that's like, we want this option, but there's now a huge pot of humanity, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, that are like, yeah, we want it too. Like, let's try to get people to be more open and understanding about the possibility of everybody existing in a way that feels safe and comfortable, not just some people.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that I don't think people really respect is how personal this experience is. And that like, the thing that I have a really hard time with is why people feel like they have the right for it to affect them. Like, I don't understand. And we were talking about our friend Raji, who in the midst of this whole Israeli-Hamas stuff, she's from India. Like, she's not even a part of that. And some woman driving through Redmond rolled down her window and made an inappropriate comment and screamed at her while she was out running one morning. And it's like, I don't understand what you think the value is in you denigrating someone else based on what you think they are when it doesn't affect you. You were literally driving down the street and there's no reason for it. And so I have a really hard time wrapping my head around why people feel so compelled to fight this movement. And I know that a lot of it is based in religion or a fixed mindset. But I'd love your thoughts on that. Like how, I don't even know where to go with that.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
It's so big.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I guess I'll start by saying, like, there is a lot of upset and anger on the planet, and people are literally using any excuse to find a way to exercise all this emotional upset. So part of it is just, I think we have a global problem, but more concentrated, obviously, in areas that are more privileged. I mean, most people have a cell phone in the United States, so we'll just go there. I feel like there's so much disconnect because of the way we now connect that there's sort of this pandemic of just lack of genuine connection with other people, physical connection, in person, eye contact, connection with other people. And I think that upset manifests itself in a million different ways. But I do think a ton of humanity is suffering from a lack of intimacy, not sexual.
Yeah.
And well,
we're tantruming.
That as well.
That too.
and there are so many places with social media to let that out. There's so many places to be instantaneously outraged with not enough intelligence or information to do that. That I think it is a way, when I see someone doing that, what I see is not what maybe most people see. Yeah. When I see someone throwing a racial slur or doing something so hurtful to someone who they don't know, I see someone suffering and in pain. Does that make it right? No, it doesn't make it right or okay. But if we look at people who do that like bad people, then we are participating in the demonization of someone we also don't understand. So I'm not about to do that. So I think it's important for us to understand that when someone is acting in that way, it is from their own place of deep internal suffering, and do your best to find compassion. And if it isn't about you, try as best you can not to let it be about you, right? So it's a little like someone, yelling at me across the street because I have blue hair. Like if I don't have blue hair, and not minimizing the fact that is not easy in every situation, but we have to understand what's ours, what's not ours, and then try not to take on someone else's completely out of balance anger. How do you let it roll a little bit? But that is, again, easy to say and not always easy to do. And I've been subject to it many times in my life, but you do the best you can,
I'm curious how people observing these situations can help. I've been in a number of situations where I've seen or heard someone make a comment where I'm like, oh, God, you can't say that shit. And part of me wants to make a scene because I hate bullies. So, the best thing to do is obviously bully someone. We know that's not right, but
that's helpful.
On the same note, you see something happening and you want to do something about it. You want to be part of the solution. But on the same note, for me to take on outrage on behalf of someone that I don't really know either, like that's not fair either for me to, hey, you can't say that about them. How do we help, as people to kind of move the needle in the right direction? I understand people are in very different places. If you're from, I don't know, pick random town, somewhere rural Iowa, you live in a deeply religious farming community, you may not have been exposed to much or any of this in your life. So it could be very challenging. It's something you've never seen. Mm-hmm. Now, we live in, the Bellevue, Seattle area, which is fairly inclusive. So I feel a little more emboldened to comment on someone's behalf. But I guess from your opinion, like what would work? What would you want to see? I see something like this happen. Do I just shut my mouth? Do I get involved?
I mean, I think the most important thing is to be incredibly clear on whether you're putting gas on this fire or if you're putting water on it.
That's a good question.
So we often do things from a knee-jerk response. We often do things without putting enough of a gap in between in information and response to that. And that's the problem. So if you see something egregious happening and then you get all big and bold and loud and start giving this guy what for, then you may not be helping the person you're trying to help. So if now that person feels embarrassed or now that person feels more threatened because now there are two men being angry or two loud people being angry if the other person happens to be a woman, if you are not 100% sure what's going to make it better, don't do it.
Just stay out.
If someone's in physical danger,
obviously,
and you feel like you want to jump in there and be helpful, I mean, again, that's a personal call, right? But I think it's a slippery slope. So I can't give you a definitive answer on what's right, but I can tell you that if you think you might be making it worse, that's probably not what you should be doing.
Back off the gas.
Yeah, and we think we're doing someone a favor. So, I mean, I will use this as a reference. There are times when I've been misgendered by someone in the room.
Podcast hosts.
Lunch guests.
I have. Lunch guests. Damn it. But if I'm in a social situation and I get misgendered by someone, if someone else jumps in to advocate for me, that's not appropriate.
Okay.
I'm a grown adult human. If I feel like I want to advocate for myself, I will. I might just want it to slip under the radar. And this might not be the same for someone of any other age or any other person my age, but there's only certain hills I'm dying on these days. And so if someone I know misgenders me, I assume they mean to do better and it's slipped their mind. They're learning a new skill and we're not always going to be perfect at that. If it's someone I don't know, then I can expect that person to know that. And so also latitude. More latitude, people, when you can. And again, this is not over every oppressed pot of humanity, but like I feel like if you can give some air, some breath to the situation, whether you're on the receiving end or the giving end or the observing end, we're going to end up with a more peaceful situation if we can just take a breath before we make a decision on how outraged we are as an observer or as a receiver. I see a lot more damage happening by people trying to do something helpful. So I think.
Well, that's good to hear from you because I tend to lean into the taking control and being a bit of a overbearing asshole. So
but again,
probably not helping.
If you take Kaje's question to heart of, am I trying to make this better or am I trying to...
Right. Am I making myself feel better? Mm-hmm. Like, is it okay for me to use the example from pomegranate?
Let's do it.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. When there was a situation at work where you said some guys were like speaking demeaningly of, I think, queers. And
some trans folks.
Yeah, some trans folks. And you, I think, basically said, I kind of just like either let it roll or went along with it. And I was saying, okay, so there is a situation. Oh, I think what you said to me is what I wanted to do was like give them what for.
Yes, I sure did.
And then what I did, because I didn't think giving them what for was a good idea, is I stayed silent. And I was saying to you, that would have been a perfect time to say something, but peacefully.
Yes. And I had rapport with those people.
Hey, these are people that you're talking about, people I care about and love, and I feel like what you're saying and blah, 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 blah. But if you explode, no good.
Yeah.
And as a straight white male, you are the best advocate in a room.
100%.
When people are saying inappropriate things about people who are any kind of different, because you're in the best position to say it. But if you don't say it calmly, you might as well not say it.
Yeah.
Then you just look like everybody else in the room.
You're
only
just
from
another
a different seat.
Loud jackass white man.
Yeah. Well, and
I could look like that, yes.
Could indeed.
Thank you for letting me bring that situation up.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a good scenario, and we
Yes.
had a good learning moment there. It was really interesting. I was happy that you brought it to the table, because that's how we learn.
Yeah, how we
When
grow
you don't
from
know
this.
what to do and you bring it to someone who might be helpful and they don't make you feel like an idiot,
Yes.
that
How do you
is
not
how
know this?
we
Yeah.
teach and grow, all of us. I grow, you grow.
Well, and it's so, it's surprising how difficult it is that in our very binary minds, it's so hard to ride that line. And even in that exact same lunch conversation, I said, "Hey girl," and I wasn't even paying attention. And you were like, comment on the "hey girl." And I was like, damn it, I did it.
Yeah.
I'm the one who did it. And I know. And it's in the front of my mind. And even then it's difficult. And I want to be respectful of where you're at and who you are and how you care to be referred to. And even if that's, their Royal Highness, like,
Wow,
sure.
I'll work with that one.
Majesty. I don't know.
No, wait, now you're giving me ideas.
Now we're getting all crazy.
I would like to be referred to as Your Majesty.
Exactly.
yeah,
Is that
and-
singular or multiple?
Singular. I think you could use it for either.
Exactly.
actually.
It's,
Yeah.
the royal we.
I mean, and that's why when it happened, look, I deal with the people that I know in the way that I know that is best for them to hear it. So I would not have said that to somebody else when you came in and hugged me and said, "Hey, girl." And
It was
I was
perfect.
and I was like, easy on that girl stuff.
Yeah.
I know I can. That's actually a better approach for you, is if I play with you back.
Yeah.
There are other people I would not do that to because it's too sensitive and they would be crushed and do something else with it. So that person, I would let it skip through that moment. Maybe later I would call them or text them and say, "I know, front load it heavy. I know you're trying. I appreciate that. There's a little slip up today, and just as much as you can, try to stay awake, for this exchange." But that's really all it is at the end of the day, Sarah. And it's not that you don't care.
No.
But we aren't used to showing up for this new piece. And you don't have to show up to call Chris he.
Exactly.
Just like you don't have to show up to call an apple. But because we've socially decided this is crystal clear and this is clear. But I mean, at the end of the day, the apple isn't the apple either.
No.
We call it an apple so that when I say, "hand me the thing," I'm talking about the apple, but that's not an apple. That's what we call an apple. So this is just a new name we're trying to introduce.
Yeah.
And there are many, 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 many pronouns that
How many?
people are. I think it's 74.
You
but
said
I'll have to
something like 70 or
double-check
80.
it.
I was like, what?
I could be
Yeah.
47, but I think it's 74. And don't
It's
quote
a
me on
lot
that
more
because
than
it could
2
be
or 3.
more or less. But there are many different pronouns that people are identifying with, and that is definitely adds to some complication. But when you think about it, like if I want to keep you in my contact list, I have to remember your first name and your last name. So this is just one more thing. So this is going to come up anyway, so I'll just address it now. What is one of the best ways to remember someone's pronouns is to try to remember it with their name. Like if you think Kaje, Thomas, Z, if I was a ZZ person, then those 3 things are the things you remember. That way, when you see me the next time, it's not just Kaje that comes to your head or Kaje Thomas that comes to your head. It's all three things. And it seems like a lot to remember, but it's not. You're just not used to it.
Right.
Well, and it's funny. I remember in a conversation that we had previously, I was trying to play devil's advocate to some of the folks who are pretty against all of this. Mm-hmm. And the question that I had posed was, if you go and look up, we'll use they or them as an instance in the dictionary, it specifically says addressing two or more individuals or things. So I've heard a lot of folks make the argument like, look, this is not correct English, so I refuse, which I think we all can agree is probably a petulant argument.
Petulant, yes.
Quite.
But technically correct. But on the same note, after having that conversation with you, because I asked you, like, how do I deal with this more easily? Like, why don't you start using non-gender type terms to refer to everyone?
Or
hey,
like
folks,
their name.
Hey, people.
That works.
Them over there. Yeah. It does really simplify things for me by trying my best to not necessarily gender somebody in day-to-day
And why
conversation.
do you need to?
Yeah, really, it doesn't matter.
Really, when it comes down to it, like, that's the thing. It's unimportant.
Well, this is some old school stuff I am not even going to touch. Right. This goes way back to possession and things like that.
Oh, all the stuff.
But I will also say, like, the they, them, okay, so it's used as a plural. But we had this conversation, I think, too. Like, if you're following the conversation, it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
Is Kaje coming to dinner? Yes, they are. I mean, we already know we're talking about one person because you said, is Kaje coming? Not is Kaje and Jill coming. So if you say, is Kaje coming to dinner? Yes, they are. We're still just talking about a human. Oh, is Jill coming? Yes.
It's a clarifying question.
She's coming. Oh, good. What time will they be here? I mean, one need only follow the conversation to keep it clear. And also, it was in the inception, they, them, probably seemed like it's already in the vernacular. Let's just use it. Because if you bring in, okay, I'm just going to like be bem. Okay, maybe that's one. If that's one, people, sorry.
Yeah.
But like, let me make up one, right? Then everybody says, well, that's a made up term. That's not even a word. So like, there's no winning, right? So I think what was attempted was, let's use a word that's already in the vernacular that we could throw in that could be followed, which it can. But people who don't have to comply or adjust don't like to adjust. But also people who do have to adjust sometimes also don't like to adjust. So it isn't just people who've never had to adjust to anything before. It is all sorts of humanity who sometimes have a trouble making space, and sometimes the oppressed do quickly become the oppressor in all sorts of different situations. So it's not, you can't stick it to one category of people who's feeling funny about this. I think there's a whole host of people that feel like they don't want to do something that changes the way they talk. And to that I say,
tough shit.
That's
in a loving
this
way.
Version of it.
In a loving way.
Yeah, I mean, just try to think of times that you were excluded, and everyone's got one. I don't care how white, straight, male you are, and everything in between. There's a place where you felt like you didn't belong, like you weren't accepted, like it wasn't okay, and that feels sucky, and it's unnecessary because there's room for everybody to feel respected and safe and a part of the group. And that shouldn't be a big ask.
Yeah.
Well, and I was reading a book of a fictional work where someone was trying to explain non-binary association to an ancient being. And the ancient being was like, yeah, I totally understand they, them, but why don't you refer to them in the singular as it? Because there was another conversation about how difficult it is to negotiate the singular versus the plural. And the conversation moved to it referencing an item as opposed to a person, and how there really isn't a good way to differentiate singular versus plural, non-binary other than you, which is a good one. And it is challenging when you maintain that fixed mindset. But when you think of things like quantum mechanics and the idea that a particle can be anything, if you believe in that truth of reality and science, that, a particle can be either a wave or a particle at any given time based on the amount of attention that is put in a certain direction. And so, the idea that people can, if you follow that line of thinking, be anything.
Right.
Like, why is my tiny little brain having to categorize so that you fit into something that means something to me, right, when it means nothing to you?
Yeah. No, that's true. I think also, like, if one really wanted to stay as safe as possible, just say my name every time, instead of using a pronoun.
Exactly. Cage is coming with Cage's.
Right.
Yeah.
With Jill. Well, what time is Cage and Jill going to, what time are Cage and Jill going to be here? Well, they'll be here at 6. Well, is Cage driving? I mean, I don't know.
Cage driving Cage's car with
my
Cage's
name
shoes.
I mean, people say, well, that means you're saying your name over and over. But if you say she every time, you're saying that over and over too. So, like, how much do you want to get out of using my pronouns? Now, there are people who will be offended by that. Like, just use my pronouns. It's not rocket science. So they will be more of a stickler. I am not that much of a stickler, but that doesn't mean that that's not important to somebody to have their pronouns recognized. And in fact, a friend of mine's child finds it quite offensive when the teacher uses their name.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
Instead of using their pronouns.
Kid gets annoyed by not being called.
Yes, because everyone else gets the pronouns recognized. How come I don't get my pronouns recognized?
I'd never considered that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So
that would be annoying.
So like
adult
now
punishment.
You're being singled out.
Yeah, now I'm the only one here. Thanks.
Right. So even running around calling everybody they, them to try and stay safe.
Yeah.
Not a great idea, because you will find people whose pronouns are their pronouns and they're like, why are you calling me they?
Yeah.
And to your it story, try going up to any new mother and ask, how old is it? Yeah.
No, and
we are not.
No, we're not there. Not there. But
It's so cute.
Oh my God, it's so cute. Is it a boy?
It is.
Is it a girl?
It is.
I don't know yet.
A very real thing. And especially if there are no delineating circumstances. And what's interesting is, I was just reading, I wish I would have read it more thoroughly. I believe at the beginning of the 19th century, pink was considered a boy's color. And there was some marketing campaign or something that came through and decided that blue was for boys and pink was for girls. And before that point, there was no gender association with those colors. And now
Not
it's
surprising.
something that we have completely embraced as the reality.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, if you're really paying attention, you do not get an unborn child who you don't know what their biological sex is, anything but green or yellow.
Yeah.
Like, you want to be staying in the proper lane and not crossing into the pink zone. It's like, okay, wow.
Lord.
I didn't, when did a color become off limits to a set of humanity who doesn't know anything yet except like mama and food.
I'm
and
hungry.
night-night.
I hurt. I need to sleep.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
So you've been wonderful in talking to me, helping to educate me through this, because I respect that the way that I've lived my life has been very in a box.
Insular.
I have a few things that I do and associate with. I do them almost exclusively, ignoring everything else. So it's been wonderful to have access to you, being willing to have these open conversations like, all right, dude, ask your questions.
For sure.
Do you ever run into cases, or are there topics or questions that tend to piss you off? I guess what I'm asking is, another me shows up who's like, hey, I don't know much about this. I'd like to know more about it. And somehow they choose to phrase a question a certain way, or they pick on a certain topic where you're just like, that
Are they a singular
rubs you the
or
wrong.
a multiple?
Nice. Well,
For this case, let's assume it's a single person.
Sorry, I had to.
yeah, no.
And why does their relationship status matter?
So for me, if I feel like someone is coming into the conversation with some heat, I'm more likely to address the heat. So this is not the example that is going to be the most fitting, but I'll give you this example. I was once sitting at a table full of people, and I had a shirt on that said tomboy, or island boy.
Island boy.
And it's a black T-shirt, white writing, and the boy is spelled B-O-I, which is been historically a reference to queer women who are tomboys.
Is it? I had no idea.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was today years old when I learned that. I thought it was from fuck boy.
Which might
Maybe that's why.
I mean,
maybe that's why that.
Maybe
term's been-
farther back, but it was one of the incarnations of finding another place to fit. But that didn't. I mean, I didn't get a hold of that until probably, I don't know, 20 years ago. But this shirt is not from a queer company, and and it doesn't matter. So I'll shorten the story. I had the shirt on. I was sitting in a group of people, and someone sitting across the table from me, whom I know and who likes me, but we're not super tight friends. But when we see each other, I enjoy this person. We enjoy each other's company. Looks at me across the table, and for those who can't see, with a finger out, points to my shirt and sort of waggles it back and forth and goes, "What's going on here, Kaje?" To my shirt.
wow.
Yeah. And so
This is a piece of clothing that I can wear on my body. That
I certainly could have been like, gotten upset at it. Clearly making a poke at my shirt and in front of a group of people, not taking me aside and being curious. It was careless. But I saw what was happening, right? This person was clearly experiencing some sort of discomfort about my shirt. And so I said, "Well, what's going on with it for you?" And they were like, I don't know. And it got a little bit funny, not for me, for them. And I wasn't trying to make them feel bad. I just was like, something's clearly going on for you with my shirt. And nothing's going. My shirt's it's on.
Feels great.
Nothing.
is it ripped?
It fits.
Yeah.
I like it. So I think people often come out with something they don't mean to come out with when they're uncomfortable. So if someone came at me in that way, and it wasn't aggressive, but it was abrasive, I would probably be more interested in taking them aside and, if I knew them well enough, talking about their discomfort with it, because I want to have a conversation that is helpful if someone's genuinely interested in that, but I'm not interested in feeding your neurosis around it or your history around it or your, not in that way. I'm willing to talk about it if you're willing to address that you are in fact the one that feels uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But particularly with when it comes to people who are non-binary, I think there's a sexual aspect that really bothers most people. I think it's a sexual aspect that's a problem because, when someone's behind me in line and I get a turkey sub and you're getting a meatball sub, nobody hassles me for getting a turkey sub. Well, I've never had somebody say, "Are you getting a turkey?" Like, nobody does that because nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
It's because it's not for you.
Yeah.
It's for me. Likewise, so is everything
My
that's
shirt.
going on with me.
Right.
But somehow when it's, sexually connected, people get offended because of their history or they feel threatened.
They feel
that
like their
happens a lot.
opinion matters.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of ingredients in the soup that makes a person uncomfortable with someone else's
Difference.
gender or sexual orientation, and that's what should be addressed. So if you're feeling that way, maybe look internal before you start, abusing everybody with your history and your trauma.
I love that you take the more mature approach to it because, I don't think I would have been I would have been playful as well, but I would have been a dick about it.
Well, if you were asking me these questions when I was in my late 20s, you'd be getting
a different response.
different response.
Oh, yeah.
Because I did not come out this way. This is, hard work. But it's the only way there's a conversation. I mean, if I actually want to facilitate peace and understanding, then I cannot be spending my time making people who don't understand feel like shit because they don't understand, no matter how they approach, unless I feel like I'm in physical danger, and then it's it's a different ballgame.
Can you say that again? Because I think that is really the crux of all of it.
I missed the salient point there.
No, that's like
that if
you're feeling discomfort, it's...
Yes, but like looking at how it really does affect you and how real that is for people. I wish I could rewind it because
sometimes
it was so
stuff falls out of my mouth and then
so pertinent.
This just happens to me.
I know. I'm like, wait, go back.
Even in session, clients are like, wait, can you say that again so I can write it down? I'm like, no. What did I say?
Sorry about that.
Was it helpful?
Hopefully it was brilliant.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I've been doing is adding responses to my arsenal of things. Like we were talking about this just earlier this week, having things like, oh, that's an interesting thing to say. Mm-hmm. Or tell me more about that.
For sure.
Or like you said, well, what about this is uncomfortable for you? Or just having a few little things that you can pull out in those moments of discomfort that allow, because for me, what I usually do is go launching headlong into something that not only makes people feel small and attacked, but also makes myself feel smarter and better, which we know is a recipe for success in these types of interactions. But you were saying if we can approach them in a way that does not cause people to get defensive, if they can legitimately look at how they've experienced being disenfranchised in their life and grab onto that and feel that and recognize that is somebody else's experience, and what can we do to help lessen the pain of that disenfranchisement, irrespective of whether we are a perpetrator of that or if we even believe that, and giving voice to that opportunity for people to feel like they are re-enfranchised.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing I was like, that you were, now it's a little bit in my head, was just like, if I want to facilitate peace and understanding in other people,
yes,
there's a specific approach that you have to take for that. And it is not to humiliate someone else or to call them out or to get defensive. Like, whatever you say about me, it has no merit unless it's true. So if I get attached to it, there must be a bit of truth in it for me. This is why people get upset, is they see themselves in a mirror, right? So if you can take your ego out of someone else's dysfunction, then you might be able to get somewhere. But
suddenly fairly non-threatening.
Right. It's
just
curiosity.
by virtue of how you approach it.
Yeah, because I do think sometimes when people do that, they want to poke the bear, right? They want to get into a brawl. And so if you diffuse that, that often leaves them like, oh, shit, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
And they don't know where to go with it. And then maybe sometimes that causes one to pause and consider why they're doing what they're doing. Mm-hmm. There's the hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you do this, obviously, you do all kinds of stuff through your life coaching business. No bullshit. Yes. No bullshit life coaching. I'm curious because, I'll speak for myself. I see a lot of this in the workplace, and it is becoming a more prevalent thing that we address on a day-to-day basis. And unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of folks are very bad at it. Is this something that you have plans to like expand and potentially look into like corporate training stewardship? Because it seems like this is very important and gaining speed.
Timely.
Yeah. No, I'd be really interested in doing that more. I do have an opportunity coming up in January, which I'm really looking forward to. And I think that part of the reason it might be fruitful, I won't say more fruitful, but It's my approach is not your typical DE&I. Here's what you have to do. Go do it. Those are the rules. Show up. Be better. Blah blah blah. My approach is, a 56-year-old non-binary human who's still learning about my own gender expression through the doors that are opening, left, right, and center, and wanting to facilitate a deeper understanding within each person at the workplace why it's important to pay attention to, so that it isn't just a compliance issue, it's a human issue. And if I can get people in touch with their humanity, which is what I do for a living, and get people to, in the workplace, to see and take responsibility for their actions and what they're creating in the workplace, I feel like that's where change comes from, when you get people to connect to their own heart space, their own brokenheartedness, their own left out moment. You inspire people through their empathy and through their compassion, not through some piece of paper that says this is what we have to do so we stay in compliance. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that I'll get more and more chances to have these conversations with a bigger and bigger audience, so that we can see people wanting to care about other people on the planet like they care about their grandmother, like they care about their child, like they care about themselves.
Yeah.
Because that's how this all works better for everybody.
Yeah. Well, and even in allyship, like, I consider myself to be much more aware than a lot of folks. And still, we're having a conversation with our team. We have a partner team down in Arizona, and there are some team members who are like, I'm not going to Arizona with you. Like, well, this is kind of a mandatory, like, team meeting thing. And they're like, yeah, where am I going to go to the bathroom? Like, well, holy shit, I never considered that.
Right.
And like the fundamental basics of being a human all of a sudden becomes so much more complicated because of people's politics.
Yeah.
And the fact that people that I work with and that I care about deeply are not able to even figure out how to go to the bathroom safely and comfortably. That sucks.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah,
right?
Literally,
everywhere.
I just kind of got blown away by that. Like, it's there, but I'd never considered it. Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
There's men's and women's bathroom. Like,
Yeah, well, for trans people, this can be really, really tricky and really, really exposing.
Dangerous.
Very dangerous. I mean, I will, my own experience with it is slightly different. But when I go to a place that doesn't have a gender neutral bathroom, I don't not feel safe, but it is like petting the cat backward to walk in that room with the dress on the door. I fucking hate it. It's not, I don't resonate with it. It's not where I belong. It's not where I want to go. But also, do I want to walk into a bar?
Yeah, bunch of drunk dudes.
In a bathroom full of men? No. So I have to acquiesce what feels good to me because I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And that does not feel good, people. I can tell you that. So the best bathroom, here's a plug. It's called, I think it's called Docks. It's on Bainbridge Island. And when you go to the bathroom, it says, "We don't give a shit" on the door. Or something to that effect. And I was like,
love it.
My God, I love this place. Yeah. So it's like,
lock the door after you. You're fine.
Yeah, just go in. And so I think, on a smaller scale, I feel massive discomfort in all sorts of situations every day. And so it just, really dials in my empathy for people who are trans who also feel incredibly uncomfortable, but then also unsafe, because I know what it's like to feel unsafe as well. So connecting everybody else with their I felt unsafe moment is part of the mission.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a universal trait, right?
It's crazy to me too, if you think about it from a building management and cost standpoint. Bathrooms are incredibly expensive to build. If you could decrease the number of bathrooms you needed and different types of toilets and this and that, like, it would be a cost savings. More people would feel included, safe, comfortable, cool. Like, it seems like it would just be an all around win.
And then no one could follow you into the bathroom and try and have a conversation with you because that happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people are like, hey, Dan, can we? You're like, no.
I have a question.
Schedule
for
a
you.
time.
Right? I have a question for you. And
right.
obviously you can't speak for all men on the planet, but like, is it,
Oh, I love this question already. I don't even know what's coming up.
is it somehow like, would it be humbling or humiliating for you if you could never piss at a urinal again?
No.
Wait, what?
Like if urinals didn't exist. Like if every bathroom was just a big room with stalls.
Toilets.
And then like, here's my hope. Someday we have like a floor button. Hit the floor button with your foot. The seat goes up. Yeah. You're done.
Brilliant. You
Hit
don't
the
have to touch
floor button,
stuff.
goes back down. You don't touch anything. And you also have to pee on the seat.
Yep.
No fuss, no muss.
Yeah.
Just take it out, pee, put it back, shut the lid and off. Like, I feel like the urinal thing is probably a way to make it go quicker and faster, but is it a dick swinging thing, or is it like, does it matter to have urinals? How important are they for you?
For me,
Just
honestly,
you, 'cause I don't know.
I don't think I'm the quintessential masculine man to ask. I have some very feminine
I'm
characters.
really curious about it. I don't know.
Honestly, I love the idea of like the women's bathroom. I've actually been in a few of them in my life for other reasons. But the stall, you've got a door, everything. There is nothing more awkward to me than standing there with my dick in my hand and some random dude I never know, like, hey dude, what's up? Like,
I'm holding my
like,
wiener.
yeah, like, I don't want to be weird, but I don't usually talk to men while I'm touching my genitalia. Like,
Right. But unbeknownst to Chris, women can pee standing up and
For sure.
are
you should clarify.
It's not as
that
easy.
you can just physically stand. It's that you can have a masculine stream. As it turns out, that blew my mind.
It's not as controllable. But
No,
it is
and
a
it's
thi- it's
definitely
possible.
messy.
It is, yeah. It's not fruitful.
It's not as
It is
controllable.
definitely
it depends on if you're trying
woods.
to make a point or not. But yes.
It's an out in the woods experience unless you don't
it's a
care
wet-
whose bathroom you're
it's a
in.
wet
Unless you're
nap
feeling
problem.
saucy.
In someone else's bathroom, I guess you could knock yourself out. But
I honestly think I could care less. I would honestly I think it'd just be way easier. It's like, this is the bathroom. Yeah. Go into this little thing, close your little door, do your stuff, come out, wash your hands, and have a nice day.
Yeah. I think part of the worry is that, not every man on the planet has good intentions when they enter that area. So
and that is,
should you be the only smaller, susceptible human in a bathroom with a larger masculine off-balance human, that would be quite unnerving.
Oh, yeah.
You know when you could leave. If you get followed in, you have to stay. Can you get out? Like, I don't think there's one easy answer for how we make it safe for everybody unless we have, a bunch of doors that lock behind us, which I don't think is necessarily a bad idea either. There should be at least 2 of those everywhere, so someone has the opportunity to, if they have to hold it, they hold it, but go into a space that they know they can come out of and they're in public.
Yeah.
But one of the most brilliant layouts I saw was huge, like you take a door and you make 5 of those.
Yep.
That was the in.
Yeah.
And then an equal size out. So it was quite open and
accessible.
cavernous, and then public was right outside of it. So no matter what happened, if you whistled in there, everybody in the restaurant could hear you. And I thought, well, that's better.
Bellevue Brewing Company has the new one that's down in the Spring District. They have a really neat setup where it's an open air space, and the sinks are on one side with the mirrors, and then around a horseshoe is just a bunch of doors, and it's all single stall, and it's all the same thing, and you come out directly into
A
public
viewable
space.
public space.
I like that.
It's nice.
Yeah, that's nice.
It was well thought out. I do have a question. You've been
Go ahead, please. Sorry. I'm jamming at it.
Yeah, I know. You're like,
Let's go. I'm excited.
I'd love to know what it's felt like, the process of identifying as non-binary, and how being in your age strata has played into that. Like, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I think I grew up in a pretty small-minded town. I grew up in Everett, and I certainly didn't know the term lesbian when I was a kid, and there were no poster children for me growing up. There was no representation. There was no, Ellen wasn't a thing yet. The Indigo Girls weren't quite there yet for me. But so the closest thing I had to seeing anybody that I thought, oh, mate, that resonates, was either other women who clearly found me interesting, and that's in elementary school or junior high school and high school. Although at some point with all of them, they're like, yeah, we can't do this anymore. And every time I was like, felt like
sure?
Charlie Brown with Lucy in the football. Like, you got to be shitting me again, again. But
that was a story of my life, and I'm straight.
Wait, why?
Again?
But my parents were really good friends with a guy who lived on Friday Harbor, and he had he coached a softball team. And we would go over there occasionally, and but every once in a while they'd have a tournament over here, and he would bring the whole crew over, and we had it. I mean, it wasn't a huge house, but we had a comfortable house, and so my parents would always say, "Well, you should just have everybody stay at our house. Like, you're only staying one night. Just like don't get a hotel room. Just sack out at our house, and the gals can just like put sleeping bags on the floor." And I remember distinctly the first time they all walked in the room in their baseball gear and their hats backward and their cleats. And I was like,
damn.
My people. My people.
Who drives the Subaru?
And I'm sure many of them were straight, but there was a couple that stuck out that I knew were like me. Like, I could see me, like, that's who I want to be when I grow up, basically was how I felt. But also super crushed out, And at the time, I think I was, probably 9 or 10. And so they all still thought of me. I'm sure they were like, oh, that cute little dyke. Isn't that sweet? Because I was very, tomboy still. But I mean, I remember one of them, I shan't say her name, but she would always call me up on her lap to sit with her at the campfire. And I was just like, I love you. I was so happy. Yeah. So there was some of the gals on the team I wanted to be. And there was some of the gals on the team that was just like, you smell good. And so.
Can I touch your hair?
Yeah. So I feel like that was my first indication that maybe there's a place somewhere. And then when I came out, my high school girlfriend, she came out slightly before me, but we were neck and neck. And she was living in Seattle on Cap Hill, and she had gone to the women's bar up there that I shan't plug. And she's like, "You got to come with me. We got to go to this bar." I was living in Malik Terrace at the time, and I was like, "Oh, I mean, okay, what's all the hoopla?" So we went, and my jaw dropped on the floor. It was like a kid in a candy store. I was like, all these people like women, what? And so, I couldn't believe it. It was mind expanding. So when I came out as a lesbian, I was just super happy to come out as anything. But you want to give yourself, a title that takes you out of the straight game, because I had been crammed in that box for so long. I would have taken anything. I would have taken fairy princess at that point, honestly. And then through going to the women's bar, I saw more masculine women there who were, at that time, the only term you could use was butch. And so I was like, oh, then I'm a butch, but still lesbian, still in the term, which is, right, a woman who likes other women. But I thought, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And so then butch was there. Well, then, give 5 or 7 years in playing softball, and then boy, BOI, became a thing. And so that was even more fun, because it wasn't boy lesbian, it was just boy. I was like, oh, okay, this is good. So we're just, chugging closer and closer to like whatever the hell is going on in here. But what I knew, it wasn't girl. So then when non-binary, gender fluid, just queer, became an option to identify as, that was better. I don't know if there's something better than this.
Yeah.
I would definitely rather be he, himmed before I'm she, heard. She, her, I cannot explain it, people. It is biological. It just is not. It's like if somebody called you she, her, it would be like, I'm sorry, what? Like
I bet I would respond almost exactly the same as you.
I almost can't understand how they got there.
Yeah.
Like when you do that, when you did it the other day in the restaurant, there is an indignant part of me that's like,
the fuck?
how did you get there? Like,
Yeah.
how does this happen? Like, I'm not accentuating the feminine parts of me. And if anything, I'm like putting them under cover somehow. And then the hair is like, the hair. And then
It's perfect.
I love it. And then thank you to my hair person, Farzana at Savvy in Kirkland.
Woo.
Go get you some.
Nice.
But I think I just, all I want to do is be in a skin that feels comfortable and be recognized for that. And you don't have to acknowledge anything in particular. I just don't want to be acknowledged as something that isn't right. I don't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is a moment where I'm like, huh? And then there's another moment like, well, you know pragmatically that I happen to be a biological female.
Yeah.
And you're strictly going off that understanding when you come in, and you're not like making eye contact with me and going,
Yeah.
cage, non-binary, Avi.
Yeah.
And then hitting the right mark, right? And so it's just, I think over time, I think in the next decade, it'll be easier for people to see people better. But I have been more seen by people who don't know me than I have been by people who do.
I would imagine.
So I get heed all the time. And I'm like, well, that's closer at least. Like I was at Costco with my wife and we were picking out steaks, and there was an older gentleman to my right, much older. And he was just standing there. I was kind of bogarting the New York area. There had 6 people coming. I was like, I got to get all the same ones. So
and is he making
same.
a judgment about not going for the fillet?
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, oh, you're not getting the fish.
Oh, you're in New York, not a fillet.
So Chris got that, did you?
I did. Yes, I did.
So
I like it.
He's standing next to me patiently, waiting, And then Jill says, "Oh, are you here to get some steaks?" He goes, "Oh, I'm fine waiting until he's done." And I think it took her aback a little bit because she's still making the transition, understanding. But for me, I was like, "Oh yeah, cool, I'll be done." Like it didn't even, it didn't register with me. Like I almost didn't know why. I didn't put it together.
Yeah.
And then she was like, wasn't that funny that he called you blah? And then we got into this really great conversation. It's like, I didn't think it was funny at all. I thought I didn't think anything. So I don't necessarily want people to use he, him pronouns, but I can tell you that when someone does, I don't skip a beat. Like it doesn't even register.
Far less
but if someone
offensive.
uses she, her,
Yeah.
I'm like, nails on the chalkboard. Yeah, a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and it's the way that it's been described as me, the way that has been described to me is that the easiest way to make it make sense is to say, sometimes I feel like one thing and sometimes I feel like a different thing. And that it's never anything that's solidified. Do you find that is true for you? Or it sounds like you identify more on the he, him than you do on the she, her. So I think if you're talking about how do I mostly feel? Yeah.
I mostly feel like nothing.
Yeah.
Like neither.
Right. And I think
Like I
that's
mostly feel
identify.
like neither. It's only ever drawn to my attention when someone pronouns me.
right.
And then I'm like, no, or, well, right.
yeah.
Like, because one actually aligns with how I look. Like I dress more masculine.
What?
And so, when someone,
I told you.
when someone uses he, him pronouns, I think, well, right, of course you would see that. That is what I am presenting.
Yeah.
When someone she, hers me, I think, what about me says she, her, And it doesn't mean that sometimes I do shift, right? So if you and I are broing out, Definitely a more masculine side of me comes out. If you and I are talking about something really heartfelt, a more softer side will come out. So I'll just call it softer side. But if you and I are talking about something heartfelt, a more softer side will come out of me. When I'm in session, a more softer side comes out in me because I have the side of me that's facilitating peace and understanding and blah, 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 right? So I don't like to call those things masculine or feminine, but people call those things masculine or feminine. When I'm around my grandchildren, I feel quite maternal. When I'm around my own son, I feel quite maternal, unless we're playing ping pong. And if we're playing ping pong,
right, destroying
his ass.
Very broing out. So, you know, when I'm around my parents, I'm likely to be a little bit more, you know, because that's a box that I was in for a very long time. And so, and I'm also their, you know, biological daughter. So of course so I shift, but if I don't think about it ever until somebody genders me.
Right.
Or misgenders me.
Yeah.
Whichever the case is.
Well,
does that make sense though?
It totally does. And I think that is kind of the point of what I'm trying to get across, is that it's not what I think about you that matters. It's what you think about you, and that respecting what you feel and think about you is the important part. And if it was, like you said, you know, Princess Sparkle Farts or whatever, you know, if that's how you wanted to be referred to, and I respect you for that, that's how I'm going to refer to you. And we've put so much value into our own experience and then the realness of our own experience that isn't really real at all for anyone else.
Yeah.
Do you have any resources that you like to point people to? Like one of the stupidest questions I have that I've never had answered is, if you are non-binary and you have a niece or nephew, what are you called?
Yeah.
Like my parents' sibling?
My brain just melted a little bit.
Right? Like, because there is no...
What do you call your niece and nephew?
There's no... There's no...
Or what do they call you as an aunt or
that
uncle?
too. Yes. Both of those.
Well, playfully, if you are queer, and and either identify as a man or are a biological gay man, gunkle is popular.
Gunkle?
Like the gay uncle.
Right.
Yeah, and I suppose you could do it with aunt too.
The Gant.
I mean, I have a niece, and but I am a maternal figure in her life. And when I say maternal, I hate that word. I don't hate it. I'm attached to the maternal part of me because of my beautiful son, who I feel so mama bear and protective over. But I don't think it's a feminine quality. I think it's a
nurturing.
I brought him onto this planet. Like, I mean, beware if you mess with this perfect little bundle that I was able to usher on to this world and shepherd as best I could through his lifetime. But that's the name we've assigned to it. So there's that. But I don't know. I think, okay, first I want to speak to what you were saying. Like, yes, we want to assign, like, to understand other people, and I appreciate your effort to understand me. I do also think that the human brain is used to identifying something and knowing what it is. Yeah. So not knowing what something is, most people find
very
quite
uncomfortable.
distressing.
Yeah.
Right. So we spend all day, whether we know it or not, I like it, I don't like it, I don't care. I like it, I don't like it, I don't care. I want more, I don't want that, I don't give a shit. Right? So this is what our brains do. So when we see something that scratches the needle, it's distressing. So we have to get used to seeing something we don't understand and be able to say, well, I don't understand it, and it doesn't matter. So as far as the, gunkle and gaunt, I mean, I'm a figure for my niece, for one of my nieces. She looks up to me and she comes to me for advice, and she knows she's going to get sound, stable advice. And after I told her my pronouns were they, them, she, without asking, but out of respect, started just calling me Cage. And I noticed it. So I brought it to her attention, and I said, let's talk about the switch. And she goes, well, you said you were non-binary and I wanted to be respectful. And I said, that is really sweet. In the future, before you be respectful, you can always have a conversation with me and ask. Because I quite like it that you call me Auntie Cage. I don't associate it with femininity. I associate it with someone important to you that's a family member that's older than you are, that is also here to try and shepherd you through the world. So it's not as clear as crystal like that. I don't see those. Some terms don't, to me, are not feminine or masculine. They just denote an energetic helpfulness to another human on the planet. But she, her, he, him has been obviously diagnosed as this and that. And that is, the more binary it is, the less
helpful
resonance I have with it. So
yes.
As far as what to read if someone is interested, Why Gender Matters by Leonard Sachs, S-A-X, is, I would say, a nice little launching pad. And if you have a queer child, or if you are queer, or if you're a queer ally and you want an interesting read, I believe it's still the most banned book
Already
on the
interested.
planet.
Oh, I'll buy it.
I'm writing it
It's
down.
called Gender Queer, a memoir, and it's by Maya Kobabe. Kobabe. It's a quick read. It's done in comic strip sort of form. It is a beautiful expression of one human's journey that lends itself to understanding and compassion. And I learned a ton from this book.
That's saying something.
Yeah, and I continue to learn when I keep rereading it and resonate with some of their path and some of my own path. And I think if every child on the planet got to experience this book when they were hitting puberty, it would be a game changer for people to just be able to feel okay in their skin. So many of our kids just don't feel like they're okay, and it breaks my heart. So I would like to see that change. But both books are good, and you should find something redeemable in the Why Gender Matters. But the Gender Queer book, get it before you can't, is something that anybody for sure who has a queer child or is queer or knows anyone who's queer should get, and just give it a read, and it will give you some insights. And it also is really thought-provoking, and if you have people in your life who are willing to have conversations, it's a great conversation piece. Like, what is this? And to talk about it. I can't speak any more highly of Maya Kobabe's book.
Nice.
Excellent.
Well, and it's so interesting how intrinsically tied and yet unrelated gender and sexual identity are, and how a lot of times it's conflated, and how I feel about who I am as a person is not necessarily directly related to who I find attractive. And so, there's all this stuff around how it feels to go from, if you're changing the way that you see yourself, then you are all of a sudden, if you recognize that you aren't necessarily cisgendered or you aren't necessarily straight, changing that perception of yourself, and having the space to do that, while still recognizing that those two things aren't exactly the same thing, that I can imagine myself as not a girl or not a boy without necessarily making that next step of what I'm attracted to. For sure. And that those two things are completely different. But I think a lot of folks in society have kind of squished those together.
Yeah, I think it's convenient to squish it together. It makes it more easy for everyone to put it into a space where they can understand it. But
right versus wrong, right?
Yeah. And I would offer verbiage that...
oh, sorry. Did I do it?
No, you did fine. But
okay.
I think people think changing my perception of myself, and what I like to say is allowing yourself to perceive yourself.
I like it.
Because you don't have to change the way you perceive yourself. You just have to allow yourself to to be able to perceive yourself so that you can allow yourself to be whatever you are in that moment. And you might be attracted to one woman you're on the planet your whole life. It may be an anomaly and it may be a thing, and who knows, because without giving yourself the latitude to express without labeling.
Yeah.
This is why most people don't know enough about themselves, because they're not allowed that latitude at an early age to say, you love who you love, and what I want for you is to fall in love. And if it doesn't work out, I want you to fall in love again and then do it again. And unless you don't have that inclination, many people are not interested in sexual touch and sexual interaction, and that's okay too. Like, whatever you want to be, whatever you feel, however you identify, that is all okay. But you're right, they do get glommed in together. And your sexual orientation, who you want to have sex with, is not the same as what you identify as a gender.
Yeah.
Nor is it the same as your biological sex. All those things are completely separate from each other. And so being able to leave them fluid and just experience life on this planet and see what happens is the best gift you'll ever give yourself and your kids. So,
yeah. It was funny. I was I was reading Dear Abby or Dear Prudence or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
you can call it Dear Abby. That resonates with me.
Gosh. And this woman wrote in about her boyfriend, and she had ended up in the doctor's office with her boyfriend. She had gone to a medical appointment with him, and they had measured him and taken his weight at the beginning of this appointment. And as the doctor was reading off his statistics, he said, "You're 5'9". And the guy said, "No, I'm not. I'm 6 foot." And had made a point for years with this girlfriend and all of the friends saying, "I'm 6 foot," even though obviously very short of 6 foot. And it's still that same mentality. He obviously identified as a tall person and got very, very mad when the doctor was like, "I'm sorry, sir, you're not a tall person." He was like, "What are you talking about?" And she had this whole thing about, how do I have this conversation with this guy who obviously is living in a fantasy land? Right. And it's kind of the same continuum where you're like, well, I feel like I'm tall. So sure.
Right.
You know, am I tall compared to our neighbors from El Salvador? Am I tall compared to my neighbors from Kenya? Like, I don't know.
Tall's relative.
Exactly.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because that becomes a problem too when people are saying like, well, you identify as a girl, even though you're biologically a boy. That's like identifying as a carrot.
Right.
It's like,
then
no,
I'm a happy carrot.
So people would put that up against the tall thing.
Yeah.
Like, well, I identify as a tall person though, so I'm tall. It's like, but identifying as male or female is not the same as physical actuality.
Yeah.
So for one to identify as a 6 foot person, when you're not 6 feet tall,
isn't it weird?
You can, and if you wanted to, I'd happily go along with it. I would tell everybody you're my 6 foot tall friend.
I'd be like, hey, Stretch, what's up?
Can you bring that tall guy over next time?
I'll feed your fantasy, because what do I care?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, they are not the same thing. Gender identification,
no, not even close,
is a brain matter. Biological identification is physical. And so let's not confuse things, people. But yes, I would happily call your friend my 6 foot friend. If that's what made him happy. Because who cares?
Yeah.
What does it cost
If you're
me?
happy being 6 foot, you should be 6 foot.
100%.
even if I'm 5'2".
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Like, it all works out right until I have to reach the top shelf in the kitchen.
Yeah, I was going to say, as long as we're not at Disneyland trying to get on the rides, we're fine.
Oh my goodness. Right.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
talk.
This is...
Is there anything else you'd like to hit?
I was going to say, like, there's so much more I want to go into, but I do want to keep this in a time format that's consumable for folks. It's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe was maybe even engaging the audience at some point of like, hey, if you guys like this, like, or if you folks liked this, you know, fire questions at us.
Sure.
Folks, team, everyone.
Open to fielding any compassionate questions with the understanding I may not have the answer.
No, absolutely.
But I'm happy to discuss it, and that's
Yeah.
every question anybody has, at the very least, should always facilitate a conversation, and that's sort of the best you can hope for.
Yeah. Well, and part of me is just so curious to get Emma in here and see what she has to say.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because she's very...
Yeah, no, I don't have anything more. I mean, if you're interested in a session or you want to talk or send an email, my website is, nobullshitlifecoaching.com.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that is in the show notes as well.
You can
absolutely.
go there.
And you're doing talks.
And hoping to do more. And
I, for one, would love to see whether it's you or someone with your level of experience and knowledge and ability to speak eloquently like this about, like I said, getting into that corporate space. I'd really love to see that because some of the corporate trainings I've been that, number one, don't address this at all,
So
are just so embarrassing and horrific. It's like, for God's sakes, bring somebody in here who knows what they're talking about to speak intelligently about this. So I really do hope that through the work you're doing, that exposure will continue to grow for you, and we'll start to see some real quality stuff in the corporate world about how folks can more intelligently and peacefully work with each other.
yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me on. And I would love to be a large participant in that adventure, that's for sure. And, here's hoping we can get the bigger platform. But I appreciate this. This is nice exposure and a good chance to have people think of things a little bit different way. And we'll see what happens. But I'm happy to come back anytime you invite me. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Kaje.
Thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Yeah, thank you guys. You're the best.
As always, stay elevated, folks.
Love y'all.
Peace.
See you soon.
Bye.